Well, everyone, it's time for us to go ahead and compare the iPhone 14 and the iPhone 12 and see which specific iPhone is the better one for you. Now, if you want to pick up either one of these phones up, links will be down in the description. You can get them from there. You can help support the channel at the same time. Now, starting off, both these phones are kind of the same but a little bit different. The iPhone 12 is supposed to be, I guess, like a more budget offering of the iPhone 12 Pro back in 2020, but the iPhone 14 Pro is the $1,000 phone now. Now on the front, it's actually more similarities than differences if you ask me. With the iPhone 12, we have a pretty decent Super Retina XDR OLED display. It's a 6.1-inch panel, and you still have things like the notch on it. You have a little bit of bezel, I guess a little bit more bezel compared to the 14 Pro. And we also do not have 120 Hz, but otherwise, it's still a really good panel. And I don't really think there's too much to hate on like this specific display. I think even now in 2022, this type of panel still holds up kind of well, just because Apple has been delaying, bringing features. And even with the hole punch display, I kind of like this one. I mean, I don't really think there's like I don't think this was that big of an upgrade from this. So until they do like a complete zero hole punch or something like that, or like they take out the notch entirely, then I think that'll probably be the time when these displays are really crazy. But the 14 Pro, definitely has a better display. It's the same size, so 6.1 inches still. I think there's a little bit less bezel overall. I think I remember hearing that from Apple's keynote. There is the dynamic island display, so now it sits a little bit lower, but it kind of protrudes into more content, so you can see it kind of protrudes into things a little bit more. I don't think this is that big of an upgrade, but the panel is better, it gets brighter, and it does have ProMotion. 120 hertz, which is really nice. So those are some really nice things there. And I do think it is an overall upgrade, but really isn't that crazy big of a difference if I'm being honest. In terms of thinness and thickness, kind of the same thing. There really isn't that big of a difference here. I will say though, between both, you are getting a much more better feeling phone from something like the iPhone 14 Pro than the 12, but that's mostly because, going from the base to the Pros, you're going to be getting a much better feeling phone overall. Now we do also have a SIM card tray on our iPhone 12, we do not have that on the iPhone 14 Pro. Lightning ports at the bottom of both these phones, and on the back, some other pretty big differences too. So we actually do have a dual camera setup on the iPhone 12. We have a triple camera setup on the 14 Pro. So some other pretty big differences there. Now we do have glass backs on both, which is really good. But the glass back that's on the back of the iPhone 12 is that standard glass back, which looks really, really good. I think this type of back is good, but the 14 Pro's frosted glass back is a completely another level. This is like top of the top. It's one of the best type of feeling backs you can have on a phone, and I'm a humongous fan of the way this phone is. Now you have MagSafe capability on the back of both these things, which is great. Wireless charging, IP certification. You have things like 5G on both, which is awesome. But you also have things like emergency SOS mode on the iPhone 14 Pro. You have crash detection on the iPhone 14 Pro. And you have a lot of other built-in features on the 14 Pro that you may not have on the 12. But the 12 still has a SIM card tray, so there's kind of a little trade-off there. So in terms of that covers it up there. Now in terms of longevity, this is also going to be another advantage for the 14 Pro. With the iPhone 12, like I said before, this phone came out in 2020, so it's not going to be supported forever, and realistically speaking, it's going to last at least a 2-year difference between the 14 series. So I think this phone still has a pretty long lifespan ahead of it, but it's not going to last as long as something like the iPhone 14 Pro. This phone, just have a feeling it's going to last for a much longer time than most people expect, maybe because of that design. And also because the sales numbers of this phone aren't looking too well, and pretty much every time Apple has a phone that doesn't sell too well, they support those phones like crazy. So that kind of covers it up there. Now let's go into a speed comparison between both these phones. The iPhone 14 Pro has that Apple A16 Bionic chip inside of it with 6 gigabytes of RAM, where the iPhone 12 has that Apple A14 Bionic chip inside of it with 4 gigabytes of RAM. So let's go and see which one is the faster one between both. Okay, there we go. All the apps are cleared out in the background, as you guys can tell. So let's get into it. 14 Pro is here, 12 is here. Phone calls 3, 2, 1. Okay, I think the 14 Pro is faster. Music 3, 2, 1. And Apple's still currently selling these iPhones too. I keep forgetting to mention that. Hopping out of these two, let's go and get into their settings. 3, 2, 1. Same thing. App Store 3, 2, 1. So this is, so as you can see, scrolling through here, let's see if there's a difference. And like I mentioned, comparing the 120 Hz to 60 Hz, that might be where the bigger difference is. Saw a little glitch here, but regardless, both are looking pretty good. Hopping out of this one, let's go and open up their clock application, 3, 2, 1. And the camera module is so big on the 14 Pro, just shakes it every time. Hopping out of here, Let's do mail. 3, 2, 1. Let's go up out of here. Let's go and get into camera. 3, 2, 1. Okay, I don't know why this pop-up came up. Let's go and take a photo. And okay, so they both got into this little night mode thing. Was faster on the 14 Pro overall. Let's go and take it into this one. And let's go and zoom in. Let's go and zoom out. I think the 14 Pro definitely was the overall faster one. As always, we have some of these third-party applications we can go and open up on both. Let's try Temple Run 2 first. 3, 2, 1. Now, this isn't that big of a game, but it's always still fun to kind of test out. And even on this type of game, you can see that the 14 Pro is overall doing still a faster job than something like the iPhone 12. Hopping out of this one, let's go and get into some of the other ones. Let's try Snake versus Blocks. 3, 2, 1. And 14 Pro again, the faster one there. Hopping out of here, let's go and try Twitter. 3, 2, 1. 14 Pro again, Facebook. 3, 2, 1. I might be logged in here, I don't remember. And I am, so causing a little bit of a difference. Hopping out of here, let's try Stack. 3, 2, 1. And again, the 14 Pro is the faster one. Let's try Snapchat. 3, 2, 1. I am logged in here, so it may cause a little bit of a difference. Actually, I think it still was faster, actually, by a little bit. Let's try something like Roblox, which I don't even think I have here. We can try Genshin Impact. 3, 2, 1. Now, this is a big game, so the loading speed is honestly probably going to be where some of the bigger differences are. From my experience of using, playing Genshin Impact on a ton of different phones, it's been a great experience on all these phones. Mostly because you have the change of graphics. You can just lower the graphics a ton and you can just get way better gameplay. So I think, it's one of those things to kind of keep in mind. I think ultimately when it comes down to both, the 14 Pro is definitely the faster one. I think the 12 held its own though, and I think it did a pretty decent job overall. So in terms of the camera layout, like I mentioned before, triple camera setup on the 14 Pro, but we have a dual camera setup on the iPhone 12. 4K at 60 on the back of both of these, 4K at 60 on the front. With the iPhone 12, like I mentioned, this is a pretty solid camera. I think in this day and age, it'll definitely get the job done for you. And it really just depends on what you're trying to do with it. If you're just trying to take like TikTok videos and kind of photos and videos with your family and different things like that, then this is going to be a very, very good camera for you. Although mine doesn't really look that good right now because it's very grainy. I have like a lot of smudges over it. This is going to be a pretty solid camera for pretty much every single person out there. Now, is it going to replace your DSLR? Probably not. But for me personally, my 13 Pro has been doing me a much better job at being a very portable machine than a lot of other cameras that I've personally bought. So I think this type of phone is very, very good for pretty much everything you're going to do with it. And for, I would say, like the average person, even above an average person, this is going to be giving you a very good camera experience. The 14 Pro though, not even close. This is one of the best cameras you can buy right now. It wasn't even that big of a jump from the 13 Pro, but just the sheer size of this camera module is crazy. Now, if we go and flip this thing open, some new features you're getting with this type of camera, you are getting things like cinematic mode. We do not have that on the iPhone. We don't have cinematic mode in any way on the iPhone 12. We have cinematic mode at 4K now, which is cool. We also have standard video mode, 4K at 60. We have cool stuff like that, but we have action mode as well on the iPhone 14 Pro. So we definitely do have a lot of capability built within the iPhone 14 Pro camera, which I'm really, really happy about. And things like that really set the iPhone 14 Pro ahead of certain other phones out there as well, including other iPhones. So when we go ahead and compare the iPhone 14 Pro, which is one of the more expensive iPhones that Apple's currently selling, against the iPhone 12, which is one of Apple's current cheap offerings, I think the iPhone 14 Pro does a really good job at, I will say the iPhone 14 Pro does a really good job at making the iPhone 12 seem like a way better value. This phone definitely is a flagship and it has a lot of things up its sleeves, but it really hasn't wowed me in a way that my 13 Pro that I have here already didn't wow me, if I'm being honest. So I think this phone is worth like $850, $800, but for $1,000, I think it's kind of a hard press, if I'm being honest. The iPhone 12 at $599 right now, I think this is also a little overpriced. If you're able to get this thing in the used market for like $499, $550, $499, I think that's a much better deal. But regardless, the 14 Pro is the better phone, but I think the 12 might be a better deal for some people out there, and that's kind of the way I would cut it. But An iPhone 13 Pro that sits in the middle of these is probably the best value, I would say. Any of the iPhone 13 series are some of the best values that sit in between these two devices. So that kind of covers it up. If you have any other thoughts or questions, please let me know in the comment section below. Hit the like button, that'll mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. More importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.